Shalom. Allah start out by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rahak HaKadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders great millstone, salutations to the Ophalet that's pushing this truth across four corners of the earth and offer truth and sincerity. This I'm on about back giving us sin. Real quick, just want to go into about how this place America, Babylon the Great, is going to be completely destroyed, by these by the thermonuclear missiles, everything, and everything here, eventually, one day, the Lord Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Yahushua is gonna release those nukes. Yahushua is gonna return the chariot, so-called UFO. He gonna bring his judgment down upon this place. When he returns in the chariot, so-called in the chariot, so-called UFO, with the angels, and zapping, zapping those are laser beams, laser beams. But ultimately, Lord Yahushua, he gonna release those thermonuclear missiles to be shot, towards America, Babylon the Great, and everybody and everything that you see here gonna be destroyed. So I'm getting into it. This is on Jeremiah 51:1. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Yahushua, behold, I will rise up against Babylon, and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me, a destroying wind. So the Lord Yahweh, he's preparing, those thermonuclear missiles, which go to the destroying wind. It's going just talking about the thermonuclear missiles, right? So Lord Yahweh, getting these missiles, set to be shot towards America, Babylon the Great. That's why China, Russia, or North Korea, you got Iran, and and then like I said, America's allies too. Those missiles gonna be turned on America, Babylon the Great, as well, But like I say, Yahweh is in full control. Those missiles, would not be released, unless the Lord Yahushua wants those missiles to be released upon America, Babylon the Great. You have other countries, like you have these other countries, leaders of, like China leader, North Korea, leader King Jong-un, and how you want to say it, Russia, Putin, because the China president, whatever we want to say it, the China leader, I forgot how to say his name, but yeah, him. But they want to release these missiles upon America, Babylon the Great, but it's not on their time, It's on Yahweh and Yahushua's time, when those missiles want to begin to be shot, to be released. So I'm gonna go from there to go to the second, Jeremiah 51:2. And I will send unto Babylon fanners, and they shall fan her, and shall empty her land. For in the day of trouble they shall be against her around about. So like I say, Yahweh Basham, he got those nuclear missiles. Gonna have those nuclear missiles, ready to be shot upon America, Babylon the Great. And her, it's America. So, America, Babylon the Great, it's gonna be completely, utterly destroyed by those thermonuclear missiles. And Trump, he he got everybody looking at America, sideways, like, this motherfucker, excuse me, this whore, man, is, it's getting on my nerves, it's getting on our nerves, man. Starting shit, and not think that get away with just starring stuff with other countries and think that you're gonna get away with it. That ain't it ain't gonna happen like that. But like I said, a judgment is gonna come upon this place, and that judgment is gonna come by way of Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua. These Edomite, so-called white people, red Edomite doubles, think that they get to just do what they want to do and not expect no consequences to come about. You think that you just go to other countries and bomb other countries just cause you want their resources or whatever. You want to have control over their resources or take it, or whatever it may be. Y'all just go to other countries, and try to get that country's resources and try to set up shop, so you just have control over the resources, cause that's what these so-called white people, red Edomites do. They rob, steal, and kill. That's what they known for. They the real gangsters. They the ones that got the criminals in suits. And I say, man, this is what they is. They just make themselves look good in those suits, but they criminals. Taking folks' stuff, man. Resources, man. Starting war with other countries for their resources. They come up with this propaganda, lies, and telling American people, oh, the other country got the country's leader is a dictator and blah blah blah. They are being, tortured or whatever they say, right? That propaganda, that lie, but really they're not. The other countries, that leader could be, really actually taking care of their people. It's just that propaganda lie they put out there. These so-called white people, red Edomite doubles, they put that lie there so they they have a reason to go into your country, knowing what you're saying to the American people is not true, and the other people that's in the countries and the leader of that country know that it ain't true. That's why don't be surprised when a lot of stuff start happening here in America, Babylon the Great, just great, there's just, horrific, just, tragedies or, stuff start happening, man, because, these so-called white people, red Edomite devil, they think, and like I said, they put their own at risk and trouble of their propaganda and lies, that they do. You send these men out there and women. I don't know why y'all join the army for, y'all, but y'all trapped in that situation. Y'all try to get the benefits of it, but now you're trapped in a situation where, shit, yeah, you at war now. It's real now. Ain't no just training exercises and then once you get done with that, come back home, whatever, do your time. No, you in the midst of war right now. I say, a lot of y'all women that joined the army, hey, I say, what you signed up for, man. But but like I said, these wicked Edomite devils, these bankers, these elites, they'll send the men and women that join the army out there into that war that they don't want to be a part of. It's not these other countries ain't bothering us. Why we going over there messing with these other people, trying to get their resources or whatever it may be, because of the president, the bankers, whoever is telling them, hey, you gotta do it, blah blah blah, and then they just dying for no reason or just nothing, right? Just because they it's all about resource and being just greed, right? That's why I say a lot of things that these so-called white people, red Edomite devils, like I say, what they say, the scripture say you reap what you sow. Say these devils, yeah, you reap violence in the earth and so forth. And it's gonna come back on you, especially here in America, Babylon the Great, because this place, America, Babylon the Great, has not been touched with no real war like that, or really at all, for real. Cause like I said, 9/11, that was an inside job, which I'm not forgetting to all that, but 9/11 was an inside job. But let's see some more. In Jeremiah 51:3, against him that bendeth let the arch bend his bow, and against him that lift up himself up in his bargery, and spare you not her young men, destroy you utterly all her hosts. You know, so that's what's gonna come about. Those thermonuclear missiles gonna be shot out of those silos. That's gonna get shot out of those silos. Towards America, Babylon the Great. Everything is gonna be destroyed. But let me see something real quick. Let's see about a word, but yeah, I ain't gonna. Yeah, I think I already know about it. Yeah, but yeah, I ain't feeling. Yeah, but yeah, so thermonuclear missiles, is gonna be shot upon America, Babylon the Great. Everything you're gonna see is gonna be destroyed. World War III. We in the midst of it, but it's not fully, hasn't really kicked off. But it's gonna eventually, like I said, all the other countries gonna get involved, man. Like I said, Russia and China gonna get pulled into it. It's gonna get ugly, man. But let me see. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go to so because I didn't want to make this too long. Oh my gosh, hold up. Slack it. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Revelation 9. Revelation 9:16. Hold on. And I heard, matter of fact, yes, and I heard a number of the army of the horsemen with 200,000 thousands, and I heard a number of them. So this right there is talking about those it's talking about right there. It's talking about the thermonuclear missiles, right? So it's gonna be 200 million missiles that's gonna rain upon America, Babylon the Great. That's gonna come down upon America, Babylon the Great. So that's what's coming. To America, Babylon the Great. Nothing but utter death and destruction. And the only ones that's gonna escape that wrath and judgment of that, which is the second death. By the ones that gonna escape that, those thermonuclear missiles and escape that fire. It's gonna be the elect of the so-called Negro, Latino natives. Which are the Israelites. The elect. If you're not, hopefully I'm part of righteous number. But if you're not part of righteous number of the elect, 2/3 Israelites, they're not gonna make it. They're gonna be destroyed. On this side of America, Babylon the Great, gonna be destroyed with the missiles, and even before the missiles, but when those thermonuclear missiles be destroyed, when the thermonuclear missiles be shot, it's gonna destroy everything that you see here that's not of their righteous number of the elect. Like I say, the elect of the Israelites gonna be taken up in the chariots I call your foe. And be not have to face that, that second death in that destruction, by the Lord Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua. So with that, I didn't want to make it too long, so I hope this edify. So again, I like to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua Bahashim Rahaka Kadash, to the apostle elders, to the Sisakim brothers, to the few Akwaf sisters that do listen, keep the faith in Yahushua, keep fighting. That say Shalom.